Good morning and welcome to our holiday broadcast of Joe on the Jobsite. I'm Joe, and my guest today is Tom Ennis, whom I've worked with over the past 25 years. He was instrumental in helping me learn and teach new different scenarios for superintendents and presentations, projects, how to look at a drawing, how to move through the presentation, how to set them up, what things are key to see, even all the way down to which colors that you're going to use on your RFP that you're sending into an owner, which has made a lot of progress in my career for the things I can do as a general superintendent. So, welcome, Tom. Glad
Joe,
to have you.
happy holidays.
Happy holidays to
It
you.
looks like you pulled out all the decorations.
Well, I left this one up to marketing, and I don't know. These look like they're a little old.
I think marketing did a great job for you, Joe.
Their budget must
Yeah.
not be very big.
Yeah, they're very budget conscientious.
Yeah.
So
Well, Tom, so in our 25 years together, I've seen you come through a lot of different phases of work. So you had a start and made your way up through to the position you're into today. Can you share with us how you started your career and some of the events along that made major milestones to shape you up
yeah,
into the path that you're into now?
you bet. I graduated college and I started in the field as a project engineer out in the field, doing tilt wall inspections, checking all the steel, all the embeds, all the cutouts, everything ready to pour and tilt panels, and that's actually where I started in the field. Great experience.
Get to check the window openings, make sure they were going to
And
fit.
check and double check and make sure all the picks were okay. And it was just very eye opening to see a tilt panel project proceed. It was just amazing how quick those buildings go up.
They stand quick. Once you get the panels done, it's
Yeah.
like, boom, here they come.
Yeah, it's just always impressive. And so I was out in the field on several projects and just through the career track, the career arc. I moved from project engineer one to project engineer two and project assistant project manager and then project manager and into senior project manager, then operations lead.
This was in the Florida area.
This is throughout Florida, really the four corners of Florida, including quite a bit of work in the islands as well. I worked in the Virgin Islands, worked in the Bahamas, and so really focused in the Florida area. I got my Florida general contractor's license and was out in the field pulling permits and running projects. And I was finishing up a project in Key West. And
Yeah, I heard the Key West project. You guys
Yeah.
had a lot of fun and fishing.
yeah, I depends on which side you were on, Joe. I actually did four jobs up and down the Keys, and just great fond memories there. Just a beautiful place. Very difficult to work because the labor and the materials, everything had to come
Come
from
over.
come from the mainland. So it was a very challenging place to work, but it was a wonderful place to live. So I was wrapping up the job in Key West, and I got a request from the marketing team for a proposal.
Right.
And having written so many contract documents and scopes of work throughout my career, I was a proficient technical writer. So I wrote a proposal and included a lot of technical details, and it was for a college in Key West, and we were successful. And the marketing department called and said, "We'd like to know who wrote this proposal because we want them to join our team." So after 15 years in operations, I moved into the marketing field.
Yeah.
And back then it was in its early stages. There was not as much competition. The statutes and the regulations were not as open as they are today.
Right.
So we did a lot of proposals, and then proposals led to presentations. So that was my focus. So after the marketing side, I moved into business development, which is more holistic side of sales. And then after that, we moved into more strategy and broader planning and just looking at the overall business objectives of a unit. So
Right.
it's been and quite often in the business it's called a seller doer or a doer seller. So in my case, I was doing, and then I became a seller.
And anyone can be a doer seller or seller
Yes,
doer,
absolutely.
whether it's the superintendent, the
Yes.
guy in the field, the guy hanging the drywall, all the way up to marketing.
Yeah,
development.
everybody should be in sales
Yeah.
in some aspect. And the really the best doer sellers are superintendents.
And that's true because they have the most one-on-one contact
Mhm.
with the owner and the architect. They build that relationship, they build the trust, they get the job done and bring it in on time. And that's a reputation that carries with them. So the next time an owner chooses that contractor for a project, they're going to say, "Hey, we had this guy before. We like to have him again."
Yeah, you hit on all the key things: the reputation, the performance, the skills, but that trust is key. And if you have a client that will trust you, they will give you more work, and it really helps that sales cycle. It makes that retention of the client much more valuable, and most companies like to brag on their repeat client rate. A lot of companies say they're at 80%, which is commendable, absolutely commendable.
Yeah,
But
that's a pretty good rate, 80%.
but the key to that is the field staff. It's
Right.
not the sales staff, it's the field staff.
In it, you have to focus on the training and the field staff, the marketing and the sales. They all have to be on the same page so that they get what the owner was promised
Yes.
and make sure it's delivered on time for them.
Yeah. And that one piece of continuity from start to finish is
Right?
the superintendent.
That's correct. He's responsible for the field, the direction, the coordination, the timing, and seeing that, I've walked with a lot of owners that want to walk the field with you and they want to hear from the superintendent how he's doing on the job and the flow. And you walk with them and you have to paint that picture as they go through the building so they can see the flow through the building. And it gets them a comfort level that you're going to be done on time and you have their best interest at heart.
And Joe, that's a great point. The best superintendents are storytellers because they can help a client visualize through stories or explanation what they're getting. Because superintendents, you look at drawings and you visualize in 2D or perhaps now 3D.
I'm a 3D.
You can, but you can visualize if you're using, say, VDC or BIM or some sort of modeling, but you can visualize the building. And a lot of clients can't see the building. They know the architects and the engineers have designed it, but they can't see it. But a superintendent sees it from the drawings, and that's a gift that quality superintendents have because they can relay that to their clients. And most clients, they just love going out in the field and being able to walk and hear the technical side from the superintendents. Superintendents are far too modest and they're humble. That's just the nature of the people. That's why they're so genuine. That's where the trust comes from. But when you think of the superintendents and what you do, the ability to communicate that to the client
Right.
and show them that
Yeah.
is a gift. And so we actually coach that. We want to make sure that exchange is there. Owners love that. That's what they're paying for.
Right. And you mentioned the coaching part on that. There's a lot of aspects for a superintendent in their discussion, from the presentation of the project to their walking with the owners on the site, how they handle an OAC meeting, how they perform or handle a weekly subcontractor meeting. And the key thing I remember learning from you was, and one of the first presentations you ever had me on was a school, and they videotaped it. And I'll never forget seeing me on that videotape going,
How'd you do?
"There's no way I'm ever doing this again."
No.
And you heard me say it.
Yeah.
And then you looked at me and said, "No, you got to remember what to do." And your point was you talk to people every day on the job site.
Mhm.
You're out coordinating and talking to them. And you said, don't talk any different when you're being on the presentation. Speak from the heart, like you're on the job site. And don't do anything different than any other way you would do on the job site, because that's what the owner's going to see.
Right.
And with that, that brought me up. Okay, so I did another one. And then 30, 40 of them later, they're fun to do, but what I would say to any other superintendent is don't shy away from it. Learn how to do it.
Sure, embrace it. And the superintendent's communication comes naturally. And I see the superintendents, they're going to stand out of the job site with their crews. Maybe it's a morning kickoff, maybe it's a weekly safety meeting, whatever the case may be. And they're already presenting to dozens, if not hundreds of craft professionals. And they're already working and they're delivering and they're communicating. And they don't think of it as presenting. They just think of it as their job. And
It's just, yeah.
as soon as you can remove that barrier to public speaking, the superintendents are the best natural presenters and they're more genuine. and it's not artificial. It comes from the heart, and I've seen it so many times. I love presenting with superintendents. It's always a pleasure because you know why? You never know what's going to come out, and sometimes it's got to be edited or fixed or changed
It-
or
it-
backed off. But it is a lot of fun.
yeah, I remember doing a presentation where I got carried away and the
No
PM had to
kidding.
come up.
Really?
Yeah, me. Can you imagine
Carried
that?
away.
And he come up and put his hand on my shoulder and pulled me back and said, "Okay, now we're gonna." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh," because presentations are usually a time limit,
Yes. Yeah. There's
anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours, and you have limited time to speak.
Yeah. So as we plan a presentation, we strip out the times, and we like the longest time to go to the superintendent because that's the most real. That's why we're all there, is to hear about the build, and the superintendents are the best ones to talk about the build. So I would always reserve the largest block of time for the superintendent, knowing that they would go longer. Because what's interesting, once you get in a groove and once you get going, you're just natural,
Yeah.
and you always go longer, and that's why we need to give you a little extra time to embellish and tell stories.
So you've learned presentations
Mhm.
and you've shared it and taught a lot of people,
Yeah.
including me. How did you pick that up? How'd
It
that
it
work
it
in your
it's,
growing up period?
so that I was never formally trained in it. I was trained as a construction manager,
Hmm.
and as you know, the job sites are very intense, very busy, very fast, and very full.
Yep.
And so as I was pulled from operations into marketing, my pace and cadence was much different. So as a project manager, I moved pretty fast. Then you get in marketing and things slow down. So we were actually in a workshop one day preparing for a presentation.
Right.
And the person that was facilitating was not, and it was difficult to watch. And just through my natural impatience, I stood up and I went to the marker board and I started crafting what the presentation should be like.
Yeah. And like kind of like an outline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it wasn't an initiative of something I wanted to do. It was a frustration out of something I didn't want to do because I wanted to get out of the room as fast as possible. And funny, my boss saw me doing that and he said, "You have a gift for that." And I said, "No, I just want to be done. I want to go." So
Nah, you're going
yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
else.
So I was called into that because I had the ability to facilitate and not push others to do it, but to lead others to do it. And there's a difference. In 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 presenting, public speaking, you want to show people the benefit to move into that as opposed to the frustration or the fear that most people have. And it takes practice, rehearsal, planning, preparation. But when all that comes together, it is very fulfilling. As you know, you've been in so many presentations,
Right.
and they should be exciting, invigorating, energizing. But at the end, it should be fulfilling, especially when you win and you can walk out thinking I gave everything I had to give, and the owner
Right.
rewards you. Says I liked your message, I liked your plan, I liked you personally, and I trust you. And here's the most valuable thing I have right now business wise, and that is
For-
my next project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I will remember from those when you're doing these presentations is you can say about anything how you want, but there's one point you have to say because the owners can see through it, and that's truth. Because if you can't wing your way through how I'm going to build this building, you've got to take it and put it in your head. And we made the comment earlier about 3D. And when I do a project, I see it in 3D. I look for the depth to go in, the deepest stuff. Can I do two flow lines? Can I work here at the same time? I can see that in the project. And then I ask myself, okay, where's the first place to complete? Da, 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 da. And I walk my way through it. And then when you're talking to an owner in a presentation, it's the truth. This is how I believe that the job can go, and that's what you've got to do. And bringing up something to just tell them something to tell them doesn't go well, and they can see through it most of the time.
Well, and when you think how technical these buildings are today and how difficult and with the advancements of materials and design and all the science that's gone into the design, these buildings are amazing today. And to match the complexity of the design has got to be the complexity of the construction. And
Right.
again, you and I both know the construction lead is the superintendent. Everybody else works to get the materials to the gate, to the job site.
Right.
Superintendent then takes those materials, resources, personnel, labor, and goes out in the field and creates something special.
Right.
So the superintendent has got to match the complexity, smarts, capabilities of the design team.
Yep.
And watching the superintendents, the training, the skills, the talent, and the passion they have, and their ability to visualize and bring that idea forward is just amazing. It's a gift, and not
Yeah.
Joe. Not everybody has it. You and I both know that.
Not everybody has it, but I believe there are people that are in line for it with a little bit of tuning and coaching. They could grow up for and grow into it. Um, there's so many aspects of it that when a young superintendent comes up, he could be overwhelmed a little bit, but just take the time, look, listen, and learn
Mhm.
and watch. And one of the other things of a benefit to presentation training is not only does it help you in talking to the owner, but you're involved in OAC meetings. We always did a pre-con meeting, a pre-start meeting for the subs, and then we had our weekly subcontractor meetings and stuff. You've got that in your mind to convey to those folks. So your ability to communicate with a little practice in front of a presentation polishes you up a little bit.
Yes. Well, it improves your communication skills.
There you go.
And
That's said in a lot less words.
yeah. Well, thanks, Joe. Well, and as you said, whether it's polish or just through that communication comes the trust. And again, I know, having walked many clients on a job site, they don't want to walk with management. They want to walk with supervision, because supervision will show them the most the most minor details which are important to a building, and the most major concepts which really create the intent and the use of the building.
What-
And superintendents do that well.
Yeah.
The other thing I would share with you, one of the interesting things early on in my career, the company I was with, the project managers and the superintendents were on the same level.
And that's the way it
They
should be.
They were peer to peer.
Yeah.
It wasn't one was over the other, because normally it's project manager is the lead of the superintendent. But the company I was with for many years, they were peer, they were equal, they were compensated the same, they were rewarded the same, they were respected the same. And the intent was they would work as a team. And it worked out so very well. Just a high level of respect, knowing that each individual had their own skill set, their own abilities, their own strengths and weaknesses, but matching those to a lot of successful projects.
Yeah, when those two are matched and you have them equal on the job, the superintendent follows, he runs the field. He shares the vision, paints the picture, sees that everyone knows it, including the PM and the PEs and the owner. The project manager, he's watching the dollars. He's taking care of the owner for the expense. Superintendent's getting the schedule done and making it built. Those two, as you just said, are equals together. One key point is that they always mesh together, because if they don't and the subs find out, they can make a little bit of turmoil on a project and play that game. And that's a tough thing. There's variances a lot of times in personalities and stuff, but when it comes right down to it, as a superintendent, you have to talk to that PM, and you have to, okay, I did something wrong. There's no harm in saying, hey, Mr. PM, let's go walk the job together, another pair of eyes. And many a times, when the billing comes in, I review the billing to see that the billing is accurate. I watch over the submittal log and the durations and the delivery dates and stuff. And then if I need help with it, the PM can chase them down, get them early, make the decision, or if it has to be bought with an early delivery or so on. But those two people are meshed together, and they got to stay that way for the job,
Yes.
and that makes a successful project.
And when you think how much time those two people spend together, whether it's 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day or 15 hours a day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, they've got to get along. They've got to communicate. They must have mutual respect for each other, because when you spend that much time together,
Yep.
you've got to have that very basis relationship. I've been on numerous projects where you walk in the field office and you could just feel the tension,
Yeah.
because they did not get along, and they weren't working together, and they weren't in concert. And while their relationship suffered, the project suffered.
Right.
And just and that's important. And it could be, you could address that through behavior assessments, personality assessments, training, coaching, mentoring. Maybe you need to change out the team. Maybe they're just chemistry wise, they don't work with each other. But the best projects I've ever been on, the project manager, the superintendent, mutual respect, mutual friendship.
Yeah,
And to this day, these people work together for 10, 20, 30 years and they still really enjoy each other and they're just solid friends. And it makes the job a lot of fun.
it
A
does.
well-run job is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the pressure, and as you said, that tension in the office isn't fun to be around.
No.
I worked with the project manager for about 8 years. We did a few projects together, and I was always asking because he's telling me, "Well, you're spending money. You're doing this. You're doing that." And I said, "Show me how to track it." And he sat me down and he walked me in through his budgets, and he said, "Here's how you track your burn rate. Here's how you track
Mhm.
your labor rates, and so on." I mean, even all the way, I mean, the line items even cover how many porta johns are rented for the whole job, and equipment, forecast people, general labor, labor cleanup, parts, all the little things, not to mention your subcontractors. And, their billing apps are pretty good, but he sat down and over that 8 years, he taught me how to look at that and watch it. And the big thing that I remember him always saying was, watch your burn rate.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, if you watch the pennies, the dollars take care of themselves. But
That was
but
something my
but
grandfather used to say.
but that's just the sharing, and it could actually just be the layout of the field office, the field trailer. How close in proximity are the project manager or the superintendent? Sometimes on jobs, they're in separate field trailers,
Yeah.
and that breaks down communication. So perhaps they're right next to each other. The best jobs I worked on, they were in adjacent offices or they were actually in the same office. So it
And
really prompted that communication.
yeah, and the best conversations I've had was sitting down in the morning with a cup of coffee in the PM and talking about the day,
Mhm.
sharing them what this is what you'll see, what we're doing. Hey, have we got this coming? Is that coming? Can I need to check the metal log to see if these materials coming, and where do I find it in the computer, and looking through the parts and pieces. Those are the best mornings you can
Yeah.
get when you sit down and talk to them. And the thing about it is you've got to share the information whether you like it or not. Because if a superintendent makes a mistake, you can go to the PM and say, "Look, I messed this up. This is what I need to do to fix it." And 99% of the time, they will help you get it fixed and figure out a way, if it needs funding without the owner cost, that you can get through it.
Yeah. Or vice versa, when the project manager misses something, perhaps in buyout or procurement or scheduling, going to the superintendent saying, "Hey, what can we do? What workarounds do we have? Can we do a catch-up schedule? What areas in the building can we go to free up this so we can catch up?"
Right.
It's just the key of those communication. And being on the job site early before the work really starts is a lot of fun. It's the start of the day. It's very energizing, and just to think about the day ahead, the plan, and then fulfill it. The other thing, kind of changing gears, the other thing I noticed, the best run jobs, very little yelling, very little
Yeah.
screaming, anger. It was a very well coordinated professional
You
job.
hear the laughter.
Yeah, yeah,
The
that
guys cutting
yeah, it
up and
was
having
always
fun,
laughing.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
those are the good ones.
yeah.
So a minute ago, you mentioned that you wrote scopes,
Mhm.
and one of the things in our program is for superintendents to learn the right scopes. What key features or things? Scopes a lot of times are written by the contract, and it has the general statements of plans and specs and so on. And then the general superintendent or the superintendent can add to it to help refine it. And one of the things I used to do, that was always a problem, was I put in the scope that they provide their own task lighting,
Mhm.
because we're required by, we should have put X candle power in each room of size and shape. And a lot of times you get in the rooms, you need extra light. Well, we're not working until we get more light in here. No, that's why it's in there, is for you to provide your own task lighting. What are some of the things you're used to see that would catch your eye to put in a scope?
One of the biggest challenges was who connects to who. And so let's say
Yeah.
so so the plumber puts a piece of equipment in or fixture and the electrician has to make a connection for power. Who makes that connection and what does that look like? Um, always looking for little gaps and little issues that fell through someone's cracks. I never put in per plans and specs because the plans and specs may not have been complete. From hardscape to excavation to safety to signage to lighting to
Yep.
lifts to, do we have a common crane or is everybody in charge of their own lift? There's so many little nuances that can catch you, and it's the little things that really impede and cause the problem. So if you can get ahead of those and address those, and the way I would write such tight scopes, I knew the drawings, I knew the
You got
specs
to do your homework.
inside out. And,
Right.
and quite often the specs will refer you to some design criteria. So you got to go to that design criteria and make sure that you understand that as well. So I would write very tight scopes based on my knowledge of the documents. And what that allowed me to do as a project manager, and I was always on site when a trade came in and said, "Hey, help me understand my scope," or during a kickoff meeting,
Right.
I knew what I was talking about. It was never a surprise. And it was in concert with the superintendent. The superintendent appreciated the tight scopes. And what it did, Joe, fewer RFIs, fewer
Yep.
change orders, fewer conflicts, just a happier job site because it was already pre-purchased, pre-bought, and it's just now we just needed to coordinate the parts and pieces.
Yeah. All the way down to sweeping, cleaning, who provides the brooms.
Yep.
You don't think about it, but the job cleanup and all those little parts.
Yep.
One of the things I always used to look at in the scope was the plumber put his pipe 5 foot outside the building, plus or minus, and that civil guy, you own the attachment and the clean out.
Right.
That's one of the things that's always the challenge. Same thing with the sprinkler line where it's put underneath the building. Well, the site guy has to bring it under the footing and stub it up in the room. And then the sprinkler guy on the inside, fire protection, takes it from there up. Who does that? And so on and so forth. All that. It doesn't sound like much, but
But it is. And while there's industry standards and there's best practices, just having those understood and communicated and bought into by the entire team is important. And as you know, we would always do a pre-construction kickoff meeting, scope review, but
those are worth their weight in gold.
and the gap between who shows up for the meeting and then who shows up for the job is always challenging. But if it's coordinated properly, it gets done. But for me, it's been a great career arc because again, I'm selling what I've done. So I speak with authority because I've been in the field running the work. So and that's why I enjoy so much working with superintendents because they're genuine, they're honest, they're sincere, they're trustworthy. There's all those things, and those are all soft issues that a client buys.
Right.
They know that's what they're getting. Are you technically sound? Sure. But are you somebody that I want to work with for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, with the changing in the way the construction industry has grown and evolved through the years, you've seen that from when you first started up to now. We had a guest the other day that talked about how it's changed from cold calling to the new virtuals. And it's just new stuff to keep up with and timing work. We've got AI tools to help us now. They'll never replace the guy in the field doing the work, but they'll help make that work better for him.
Yes.
So, well, Tom, thank you for coming today.
Happy holidays, Joe.
As soon as this weekend, those things are getting out of here because that ain't
You taking them to the house?
No, I ain't taking them to the house. I might go somewhere else. Thank you for coming. Have you got time to do another podcast
Joe,
with us here
I would
shortly?
enjoy that. Thank you.
Well,
Thanks for having me, and sure, let's do another.
We'll do another. I appreciate it. Welcome. Let me try that one again. Thank you for joining us today for our Happy Holidays podcast. I am Joe on the Job Site with my guest, Tom Ennis. He'll be back again. We're going to do another segment of podcast with him. Thank you.